Well, hi there, and a very warm welcome to Jump to It here on irishracing.com. I'm Ed Quigley. We have an action-packed show to get stuck into this week. Lots of news there has been in recent times, including star stayer Stradivarius will remain in training next season. We'll get the thoughts of the team on that, along with all the kind of fallout from the Cheltenham Showcase meeting and the Group 1 action we saw in the Virtum Virtuity up at Doncaster. We're also be talking all things down under, reflecting on Joseph O'Brien's win in the Cox Plate and a look ahead to the Melbourne Cup. And of course, it's a stellar weekend of action to get stuck into as well, with Darren Royal taking centre stage. So lots to look forward to. And on that note, I'd like to bring in the team. Of course, we have Stephen Harris and back in the hot seat, Vincent Finnegan joining me. Gentlemen, just before we kick off, Shane Anderson, of course, who steered the ship beautifully, has moved on to pastures new. So unfortunately for this week, at least anyway, you are stuck with this face for radio. But yeah, we should be a good show. Lots to look forward to. And we'll come to you first, Stephen. Stradivarius, an interesting talking point here. Seems to be like everything in racing circles, dividing opinion. A lot of people are excited by the prospect. John Gosden has confirmed that he remains in training next season. Some people are disappointed. Some people are confused. What would your take be on the star stayer?
Well, I mean, I think I often moan about the fact, I'm sure we both do, Ed, that, it's very fleeting. It's all compressed into 3 months and then they pack them off to stud and it's the last you ever see of them. So I think it's actually really refreshing that Stradivarius is going to stay in training for another season. I mean, the only thing, that's slightly surprising is he has won everything 3 times in the staying division. He's not going to be doing anything new. And there were 1 or 2 signs, weren't there, that he was slightly on the wane last season. He made hard work of a couple of assignments and he was pretty laboured on a couple of occasions too. But fair play to Gosden. He's keeping him in train. The owner's a real sportsman, obviously not short of a few quid, which helps. But it is nice to see these horses run season to season. They build up a following and generate interest in the flat. Whereas, a lot of these horses, it's all done and dusted before you get to know their run styles.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose Stradivarius is at one end of his career. Vincent, a horse who's at the embryonic stage of his career, will be Luxembourg. Of course, got the job done nicely in the Group 1 Virtum Virtuity at Doncaster over the weekend, giving Aidan O'Brien a record equaling 10th success in that race, matching the Great Lakes Henry Cecil. And it appears they've got a ready-made classic contender for next season there, Vincent.
Yeah, certainly looks it. I was far more impressed with his Curragh win than I was with the Futurity race, to be honest. Look, Aidan is fantastic with these. He seems to be able to nurture them through and bring them for the classic glory next year and everything else. Again, like the Stradivarius thing, you'd love to see horses like Luxembourg going on racing at 4 and 5. It's not going to happen, no doubt. If he turns out to be the real deal, he'll be shipped away like St. Mark's Basilica was very early, even halfway through a season, realistically. The Stradivarius one is interesting. As Stephen says, the horse has nothing to prove. He's done it all. He's done it all 3 times, more or less, in most of those main staying races. This season, he wasn't that good, in fairness. Beaten a couple of times, like the other horse, Trushan, is definitely the better of him on soft ground. There's no question about that. You just wonder, why are they bringing him back? You'd like to think he might go over hurdles or something. That'd be a bit of fun, wouldn't it? He'd be a hell of a hurdler, I'd say. But realistically, I'm not quite sure why they're doing that. I don't see the benefit. Maybe for the owner, it's nice to have a classy horse running in top races, but that's about it. He's nothing else to prove, and I'm sure there's going to be younger horses coming through. You'd imagine soon that'll knock him off his pedestal properly, and he won't be winning a whole lot next year at the top level, I wouldn't think.
Hey, coming back to Luxembourg, Stephen, Guinea's horse, Derby horse, neither for you. Rubbish value. I mean, how do you sum him up?
Well, I mean, it's one of those horses, Ed, that's going to divide opinions. I mean, when I watched the race, I backed Bayside Boy on Saturday, and I thought he didn't get a particularly good ride and didn't enjoy any luck in running. I don't think there's much between Bayside Boy and Luxembourg, and whether that's good enough form for sort of Guineas and Derby is another matter. But I do respect a lot of good judges have said, he's an angular horse. He's going to grow over the winter months and he'll strengthen up and he'll improve for a stiffer test of stamina. But, I mean, having said all that, he was only workmanlike at Doncaster. I suspect he was on the right part of the track and out of all the trouble and messing around that went in behind him. He won by a couple of lengths driven out. I think he was workmanlike at best. And, I mean, he's a criminally short price for the Derby. He's priced up purely on connections, breeding and hype rather than anything in the form book at around 4-1. So from a price and a misery sort of professional punting sort of point of view, you couldn't dream of backing him. But obviously he's progressive. He's trained by a genius. He's owned by the right people. They'll know more than us. But at this stage, he looks a very short price for the Classics next season.
Well, we're switching attention now to Shane Anderson's homeland of Australia. And, of course, Joseph O'Brien, Vincent, someone from your homeland, went down there and won the Cox Plate in great scenes there down under. And, of course, lots to look forward to with the Melbourne Cup coming up as well. It's been a lot of talking points in regarding to the European Challenge, who's not allowed in, who can get in, the different protocols. There seems to be it's a big change and shift of dynamic of what's going on with racing in Australia at the moment as a whole.
It's certainly a mess from a European point of view, whatever about internally within Australia. State arrest, it was astonishing what Joseph O'Brien has done. Like, he's after winning, there are two major races, the Melbourne Cup, obviously he's won twice, and now the Cox Plate. It survived the Stewart's inquiry, fair enough, but like, it was some performance to bring the horse out there. As you say, these new protocols are crazy stuff. That horse had to be sedated 4 times in order to fulfill his requirements for the protocols around making sure that he was x-rayed and all the rest of it in the previous week. So 4 times in a week he had to be sedated. That seems crazy stuff to me. That must be a health risk for the horse. There must be issues around safety when he runs after that. I'm not quite sure what the implications are. We'll see now. Next Tuesday we've got the Melbourne Cup. There's going to be a couple more contenders. Joseph is due to run. Twilight Payment, who won the race last year, he's heading out there. Andrew Balding has a Spanish Mission in it as well. So like, they're 2 towards the head of the market. Be interesting to see how they go. I presume they've been sedated 4 times as well on their run up to this Melbourne Cup. So, as you say, with Shane away, it's hard to really talk too much around the Australian side of things. But there were a few interesting things out of the state arrest run. First of all, was the fact that Johnny Allen rode the horse. Was an Irish jump jockey, and he originally rode for Joseph's grandfather, Joe Crowley. He would have been attached to him. Then Joe was getting on in years, and the situation was changing, so he wasn't getting a whole lot of rides, and he headed to Australia basically as a jump jockey, then turned into a flat jockey, and now he's a Group 1 winning flat jockey and multiple Group 1 winning flat jockey. So it's amazing to see how his life turned around by heading down under. For next week's big race, the Melbourne Cup, the favourite is an astonishing horse. This horse called Incentivize. He's 13-8 favourite with most of the bookmakers at the minute, which seems crazy for a 24 runner, one of the most competitive handicaps on the planet. And this horse didn't race till his 4-year-old career. I think was the first time he raced, didn't win. He came out this season back in April and started to win, and then he started to really win. He's winning by huge margins. He's after winning 3 Group 1s on the bounce coming in here. He could be a certainty, I suppose, but we really don't know from this side of the world, I suppose.
And do you have a fancy yourself, or too early to tell?
For me, just looking at it with Joseph, the way he's performed with his horses, this Twilight Payment is a solid horse. Finished second to Sonny Boy Listen in the Irish Ledger the last day. Before he went to Australia last year, he'd only finished 3rd in the same race. So he was beaten 2.5 lengths, I think, last year when he finished 3rd. He's only beaten 3/4 of a length this year in the Irish Ledger. So he heads out there, you'd imagine, in similar, if not better form to what he did last year. He has to have a squeak at 14-1 each way, the way Joseph's horses have been performing in Australia.
Absolutely. Keep your eyes on Twilight Payment down under. Without further ado, we'll look at the weekend action. Well, lots of action to get stuck into this weekend. We mentioned at the top of the show, Down Royal taking centre stage, what should be some mouth-watering contests. Of course, action on the Friday and the Saturday with the 2 Grade 1 races. But action we're going to start and concentrate on is the 220 on Friday, the WKD Hurdle. Grade 2 action here on your cards. Bit of a disappointing turnout, it's fair to say. The race has cut up. Zana here, likely to be a short price favourite here. Of course, this horse who was 4th in the Triumph Hurdle at the Cheltenham Festival. This is a race that in the past has been a nice springboard for horses to go right to top level. Won by the likes of Max Joy, Mellon, subsequent champion hurdle winner Jeski landed this a few years ago as well. But Vincent, a little bit of a poor showing, I think it's fair to say.
It is. There's a few interesting things around this. The first one is we've had biblical rain here the last 24, 36 hours in Ireland. I've never seen nothing like it. It's literally, the sun has just come out here in Kildare in the last few minutes, but it has solidly rained all through the last 24 hours. And the ground is now soft. Well, soft on the chase course. I think it's yielding to soft on the hurdle track up and down Royal for the 2 days. There's more rain due, because I think they haven't got the worst of it yet. It's been coming up the country. So it's probably still raining as we speak up there. A few interesting things about the Down Royal track. It's a cracking race course, like one of the best, one of the fairest race tracks, big wide open track for National Hunt horses. I know a famous trainer from over here years ago, Francis Flood, who's not with us anymore, but he was a guy who used to target this with a good horse. He used to say, if you have one good enough, it will win in Down Royal. So what's interesting around it is, over the 2 days, Willie Mullins is only one runner. He seems to avoid it every year, and I'm not quite sure why he does that. Like, you look at what he's done with his dual Gold Cup winner, starting it off in Tramore each year. You wouldn't walk the dog around Tramore, never mind run, a Gold Cup horse there. Why not go to Down Royal? It seems a perfect opportunity with the big race on Saturday as well, where we can see the reigning Gold Cup winner Minella Indo goes there, and Froden comes over as well. So strange from Willie Mullins, but he does things a different way. You can't fault him. He's a champion trainer, and he'll produce them when the time comes in Cheltenham and Punchestown and everything else. So it's just interesting that he doesn't take part in this meeting realistically. Some good racing on Friday, but the Saturday stuff is the real key. We've got 2 big things running. We've got Envoy Allen is the first one. Horse hasn't won for Henry de Bromhead since he switched from Gordon Elliott earlier in this year. So it'll be interesting to see how he gets on. He's going to be a very, very short price. There's no opposition to him in the race he's in. So really it should be a schooling session, and it'll be extremely disappointing if he doesn't win this time. He fell in Cheltenham in the Marsh. He was 4-9 that day. Then he went to Punchestown and pulled up lame. So we really need to see the real horse back this time, and hopefully we will. And then we've got the big race with Minella Indo. Interesting jockey bookings here. We had Jack Kennedy had his name beside the horse overnight, and then it's changed. Now we've got Rachel Blackmore. Seemingly Gordon Elliott has put his foot down and says he wants a stable jockey to ride one of his horses. He's on Delta Work now in the race. So Rachel gets back on Minella Indo, horse that she tossed a coin whether to ride it in the Gold Cup or not. So it'll be good to see her back on it. She's only back from injury herself. She's only had the one winner since she came back. So interesting stuff, and a subplot to the race itself. Hard to see Froden or Delta Work or Galvin giving Minella Indo much of a go, but the soft ground isn't going to be an issue. He's won twice before, I think, on heavy. So should be straightforward again for Minella Indo and for Envoy Allen, but they really need to produce the goods, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Vincent's got stuck into the Saturday action already there, Stephen. We're still still going back to the Friday card. It's open goal for Zanahiyr here. I mean, do you think this is a horse? I mean, there's a lot expected of him. I do quite a few of the Cheltenham preview night circuits, and Zanahiyr was like the horse a lot of people would not hear a defeat in the build-up to the festival. Ran a bit flat on that occasion. Ran a lot of credit in defeat at Punchestown. I mean, do you think this is an open goal for him here?
Well, it looks 2 runners there, doesn't it? It's 100 bar 2 by the look of it. It's either Zanahiyr, who's half the age of Caskmate. I mean, Caskmate is race fit, did win on the flat the other day on good ground. The only thing with Zanahiyr, I mean, I think he's got by far the best form and a lot more potential, but he can race quite freely. In the Triumph Hurdle, as you say, it was pounds, shillings and pence, wasn't he? He was 11-8 favourite. The whole of Ireland was on, and he didn't really settle in the first mile and was a little bit disappointing. I think that was probably a strong Triumph Hurdle. He was right back on song at Punchestown, where again, I don't think he got the best ride. He was part widest of all for the first mile. Jeff Kidder, who's a prolific winner, came and did him, which was a right result on the day for the bookmakers. I think Zanahiyr's got a lot more potential than Caskmate, who has run 7 times over hurdles. So not much of a betting race there. I should think it'll be 2-1 on, 2-1 against, and a search party bar, and that'll be the race, to be honest with you.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll draw a line under that contest. We'll move on to the Saturday, the 250. Now, this is a race to really get excited. Of course, Vincent alluded to it earlier. It's the Ladbrokes Champion Chase Grade 1 action over the 3 miles. What a lineup we've got in here. Of course, we've got Down to Work, a multiple Grade 1 winner in Ireland. Your King George winner, Ryanair Chase winner, Frodon. Galvin, of course, has become a bit of a win machine in recent times. Made a very pleasing comeback a couple of weeks ago. He's in the lineup here. The combination of Davy Russell, Gordon Elliott. Then you have your reigning Cheltenham Gold Cup winner in here, of course, Minella Indo, which I believe that Rachel Blackmore is taking the ride after kind of arrangements with Gordon Elliott and the jockeys, etc. And Raven Hill, of course, is also in the lineup. This is a cracking contest, Stephen. Vincent talked about a lot of rain has been a down roll at the moment. That won't be an inconvenience from Manella Indo, likes to get his foot in. He's around the 8 to 11 mark, there or thereabouts. Do you think he's the right price?
I mean, it's a fascinating race. There's 5 runners. Gordon runs 3 of them. I think Ravenhill looks sort of 100. The top one, Delta Works, a double-figure price, probably need the run. So you're down to 3. Manella Indo, obviously the class act, plenty in hand on the ratings. Frodon never left England, as far as I can see, looking back through his form since he arrived from Auteuil in 2016. Prolific, tough, genuine, going to front run, jumps superbly. But you can see that the Irish horses are just going to be sitting, stalking. Perhaps Frodon will be vulnerable first time out, although he's got a good record fresh and he's sure to be primed by Nicholls. I think Manella Indo is probably the clear form choice. I don't think these sort of small field graded races at the start of the season are fantastic betting mediums, Ed. You always tend to find that the warm money will know a lot more than any of us three. What goes on in the last 3 minutes on Betfair will be very revealing as to what's expected, particularly with Elliott running 3 of them. But I should think this is a pretty good opportunity for Manella Indo with a clean round of jumping to probably get past Frodon after the last.
Yeah, I suppose there's a view to the bigger picture as well, with Paul Nicholls saying obviously everything for Frodon will be geared towards Kempton again at Christmas. Delta Work traditionally does need a run. Vincent, just to bring him in on quickly on this, Galvin is the joker on the pack here. Now, is he on a 7-timer coming here or something ridiculous? Cheltenham Festival winner, won nicely at Punchestown. A few people are kind of calling him the left of field selection for the Gold Cup, given he's got the Cheltenham form in the book. I mean, he is the kind of the joker in the pack in this race. We don't really know how good he is yet, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, I'd have a slight worry about him in the ground if it's very testing. Having said that, he stays all day. He'd stay further than this. He was the 4-miler in Cheltenham he won. I could see him being involved, but it depends on the pace, I suppose, that Brindy Frost goes on Frodon. That's going to determine what really happens here. You'd imagine she'll go a good pace and the horse will be pretty fit for its first run. If they do the normal thing on it, I think you'll see Frodon coming down to the last in front with Manella Indo stalking. I can't see Galvin personally being involved this time. I'd say there's like everything with Gordon Elliott as well, be longer term plans here. I wouldn't think he'd really want to expose his horse completely here and give him an absolute grueler of a race first time out. So I'd say he'll sit back. I'd say Delta Work will also sit back. They let Frodon go on with Manella Indo stalking in second, and it's just a case of the 2 girls will fight it out, I'd imagine.
Yeah, indeed. It seems to be pretty much unanimous for the reigning Cheltenham Gold Cup winner Manella Indo to get the job done. The next race on your cards, 35 minutes later, is the Join Racing TV Chase Grade 2 action here over the extended 2 miles and 3 furlongs. Of course, all eyes on horse number 1 on your cards. Envoy Allen is back. Rachel Blackmore in the saddle for Henry de Bromhead. We have Cocoa Beach, Vado Fort, Echoes of Family. I think we've got Ferry Hill Run and You Know Me Too Well making up the rest of the card as well. But Envoy Allen, Stephen, of course, was the Cheltenham banker in many quarters last season. Things kind of went pear-shaped, shall we say, in the Marsh Chase. And then subsequently after that, we diagnosed with a chip joint injury, I believe, after his run at Punchestown. He comes here under a little bit of a cloud, I think it's fair to say. It's not the toughest of races on paper, yet he's got to show that everything's back in A1 working order, I suppose.
Yeah, well, I mean, when he won, Ed, those first 3 races over fences last season, he just looked like the absolute next monster, didn't he? He just devours the ground. He jumped superbly. I mean, he really was banker. I think he went off 9 to 4 on in the Marsh Chase. He was in more multiples than Annie Power a few years ago.
Yeah.
And the punters were all pulling their hair out. Because, of course, a lot of people, they bet these horses a lot earlier than on the day. On the day, he was, 1.49 or whatever he was on Betfair, smashed off the boards. But a lot of people are on odds against months before. And it really is a tearjerker when they go on the floor, when you've got so much value. I am still a believer in him. Henry de Bromhead is absolute genius. He's having winners in Ireland as well, which is not always the case first time out with his horses, but they seem well forward. And Envoy Allen has very little to beat here. Vincent was just saying about the rain. Well, he loves heavy ground, doesn't he? He's an absolute devours it. I should think he'll come home about 25 lengths clear of these and get his career back on track. He's likely to be about a carpet on, a 3-1 on by the look of it, and he looks all of that. I would think he'll get his career back in the right direction.
I suppose the bigger question here, Vincent, people moan we're always looking past now and looking too far ahead to the future, but Where do you see Envoy Allen in 6 months' time? Is he a Gold Cup horse? Is he a 2.5 mile Ryanair chase horse? Is he an easy 3 miler? I mean, I suppose there is a lot of fact finding missions with him to find out where at the top level he's going to excel and really fulfill all his potential.
Absolutely. I'm not sure at this stage. I say the jury is still out. The big thing is we need to see he's still got the engine he had for the last couple of years. If we can see that again, well, then every door is open for him. He could be anything. He could be a 2 miler for all we care. He can do whatever. But you'd like to think the ideal thing would be Gold Cup. That's what we always thought when we saw him over hurdles and everything in this point-to-point days. Everything was heading towards he was going to be a Gold Cup star. That's the one that everyone wants to win. So that's where I presume they'll be mapping out his season for. Whether he's good enough to win it this year, maybe it'll take another year. It's hard to know because look at the talent that's in the Bromhead Yard heading to the Gold Cup already. So what's he going to have? 5 or 6 at this stage? He could have, it's hard to know. But yes, you'd imagine like the Bromhead, Willie Mullins. If it was Willie Mullins training them, you'd say he'd be splitting them between all into the different races at Cheltenham. The Bromhead doesn't seem to mind. He seems to be happy to just win the big ones, and he'd be happy enough probably running them as a third one in behind his 2 good horses in the Gold Cup. But let's see him get through Saturday first. That's the key, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Great to see Envoy Allen back. And I think we'll all agree, really exciting card at Down Royal. Top class action. Back across the Irish Sea to Wetherby. Let's not forget there's some pretty good stuff going on there as well, including the West Yorkshire Hurdle or the Bet365 Hurdle. Grade 2 action coming up at 2:30 on your cards. The old boy Paisley Park is back for more for Emma Lavelle, around 2-1 on your cards there. We've got Arse Dillon, Master Tommy Tucker, Proschema for the Skeltons. I believe he's having a pipe opener before the Paddy Power Gold Cup here. We've got Run for Oscar. The old boy Slate House, previous Grade 1 winner over fences, is back over hurdles. Thomas Darby, very interesting horse. I'm keeping my eyes on here for the Ollie Murphy-Sean Bowen combination. And Indefatigable, previous Cheltenham Festival winner for Paul Webber and Daryl Jacob. This is a good little lineup here, Stephen. Paisley Park has to concede weight all round to his rivals here of £6. Around the 2-1 mark. Is he a play at that price for you?
Well, Lavelle's horses are definitely flying, Ed. There's no doubt about that. Paisley Park's now 9. He's obviously had problems. I think he had a heart fibrillation, didn't he? When he was disappointing at Cheltenham a couple of years ago. And he went out last season under a cloud, pulling up at Aintree. He's a top-class performer in his day. I always got half a suspicion he probably wants good ground. So Wetherby should suit him, although there's loads of weather around, so we don't really know what ground we're playing on at this stage. I thought the interesting one, and it is a very, very difficult race to price up this. There's a lot of question marks over whether today's the day for some of these horses, but I did think that Master Tommy Tucker was an interesting runner. I mean, he's got a colossal engine. He's actually a very good jumper of a fence, but he is prone to sort of one of those sort of shut your eyes crashing falls from time to time. But he's a really interesting run. If they ride him positively back over hurdles, he won't be stopping up that long straight. It's just a question mark. He's one of those horses. He could be 7-2, 100% fit. They're going to have a proper go, or this is just a sighter for different targets ahead, like the King George, things like that. So the market will be fascinating. This is a very, very hard race to price up. I mean, I think Paisley Park's around about 5-2, looking at the very early market. That could be a very big price if he's A1, primed, back to his best. The flip side is we haven't seen him for a while. The last time he looked a miss when he was pulled up at Aintree. And is he the force of old age 9? So there's a lot of question marks. I think the horse you touched on, Thomas Darby's a very interesting runner. That yard in particular, Ollie Murphy, they are absolutely fly. He's got some lovely horses. They've tended to be fit. He's had a few winners this week. I wouldn't be surprised if he started favourite. He's the younger horse, open to a bit more improvement.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm throwing my pennies worth in on Thomas Darby. He's totally unexposed. Only had the one run at 3 miles, of course, where he was staying on third behind Time Hill at Aintree, where he was ridden very patiently under Jack Kennedy that day to get the trip. And I think now they found out 3 miles is his distance. I think he'll be in receipt £6 here. He could really give Paisley Park something to think about. Vincent, we'll move on to the 305, the Bet365 Charlie Hall chase. Interesting field we got here. Of course, we've got the enigmatic surname for Paul Nicholls and Harry Cobden. Of course, won this race in the Common Cancer 12 months ago around the even money mark. We've got Clondall Castle, Tom George and Jonathan Burke. Lucinda Russell represented by Mighty Thunder here. Shan Blue for Team Skelton, of course, who was very impressive when winning at Kempton over Christmas. Fusel Raffles for Nicky Henderson, Daryl Jacob, Kitty's Light, Christian Williams, Jack Tudor, and Topville Ben, Philip Kirby, and Thomas Dowson complete the lineup. Vincent's surname, I can never seem to work this horse out at all. I'm not even sure Paul Nicholls can work him out, to be honest with you. But on last year's running, it's fair to say he could be a bit shorter than around the 6-5 mark or whatever he is now.
Yeah, he's a funny horse, isn't he? He's kind of the Jack Grealish of horse racing. You know, he hasn't really produced it. Like his big reputation hasn't produced it at the top level against decent horses. That's the bottom line. So like his rating was obviously way inflated there a year or two ago when he was supposed to be the top rated horse in training. I don't know what to make of him. He's pulled up his last twice, hasn't he? It's very difficult to be backing him at a short price here. It's a difficult race, in fairness, because I don't think there's any star in it, with the exception of him. So it's hard to know what to do from a betting point of view. I'd be steering clear of it. The race he just discussed previously, that Bet365 hurdle with Paisley Park, the Irish horse is an interesting one in that Run for Oscar. Charles Burns doesn't know how to improve one, and this horse has improved rapidly on his last two starts, two festivals during the summer at Killarney and then at Listowel. Both times stepped up and tripped. The trip seems to be the key. He's Jonathan Burke booked for that. That could be interesting. The surname race, back to that, I certainly couldn't back him, but I wouldn't back against him, because obviously Nicholls seems to think he's the real deal. So he's more than capable, I'd imagine, but big question marks about him.
Yeah, Stephen, a bit of a head scratcher to many this race in terms from betting perspective. Again, yeah, you're talking around 6-5 surname. Keen on that price?
Well, I think this is a hard race to assess. I mean, I don't fancy Kitty's Light. I can't imagine he'll be quick enough round Wetherby on a flat track, goodish ground. I'd be amazed if he was involved. Though he's progressing really well, he's trained by a genius. The favourite surname. Well, if you only watched him win the Charlie Hall in 2020 last year, that was a deeply impressive performance. He tanked through the race. He quickened up and beat Vindication, who we're going to come on to talk about in a minute. If he repeats that form, he'll win. I mean, Nick, he's had the wind operation. Everything went wrong after that. He pulled up in the King George. He pulled up on his final start. Something was clearly amiss. He's had his wind done. He's had a racecourse gallop. He's done loads of work, apparently. This will be his day. I mean, Paul Nicholls sort of sounded like he'd lost faith a bit. You know, he said, he's best fresh. So you'll probably see him at his best on this day. This will be his Gold Cup, basically, I suspect. Chamblou is an interesting runner, isn't he? Fantastic runs at Wetherby as a novice. Flew round. He's a flat track glider. Dan's horses, he's got 180 this year. Some of them have been needing a run, which is unusual. But the A-team ones, the All Mankind's, those sort of horses have been fit and ready to run. Yeah, third time lucky. That's right. So the ones on a Saturday, the Saturday horses have been ready to run. Some of the midweek ones have been weak in the market and needing it. Chamblou has probably got more potential than Surname. I think it's a watching brief race, isn't it? Like a lot of races at this time of the season, it's hard to have strong opinions. We've all got our sort of views about horses, but first time out after 8 months off, it's hard to have concrete views without seeing the market in the last few minutes.
Absolutely. For what it's worth, I think Chamblou's a real danger here. As you say, he had 2 races at Wetherby last year, one of both hard held by about 15 lengths. His form is skewed by his Cheltenham flops, if you like. I think flat track's decent grounder. I actually think he's again, I've backed him for the King George at a big price. So I wouldn't be shocked if he ran a big race at Kempton in a few months' time. Moving on to Ascot, of course. They have a really good card on Saturday with the Bateau London Gold Cup Handicap Chase. Perhaps headlining the card there at 320. Grade 3 action. Vindication, top weight, the winner from 2 years ago. Head your card there for the combination of Kim Bailey and David Bass. We've got Benny's King and Mr. Malarkey. Of course, a horse with good form at the track. Real Steel on the comeback trail for Paul Nicholls and Lorcan Williams. Anthony Hannibal, Richard McClernand team up with the old boy Regal Encore. Absolutely loves the place, doesn't he? I think it's fair to say. The same trainer represented by Sojourn with Rex Dingle in the saddle. John Beebe for Tom Lacey, Stan Shepherd, Diderio Vallis. We've got one more Fleury, Captain Chaos, Jerry's back, Glenn Forcer, and now with Charlie Longston. Check it out. And Larry, horse number 14 on your card. Come to you first, Stephen. Vindication He won this 2 years ago, off the top of my head, off about £7 or £8 lower. A bigger weight this time round, but do you think he can defy top weight here?
He's my selection. I think he loves Ascot. It's going to rain, Ed. The forecast diabolical by the look of it. They're not going to miss it all on this occasion. So I think it'll be nearly soft ground, which is what he wants. I mean, he started off last season. I actually backed him to win the Gold Cup last year. I thought he ran an absolute blinder in the Charlie Hall. Things went wrong for him. He got driven mad up front. This is a horse. I think he's much better when he's right up on the pace, using his jumping, because his jumping's worth half a length when he gets into a rhythm. This is the way he wants to go right-handed, I think, now. Things went wrong after the Charlie Hall. They switched him back to the Stayers Hurdle, where he was far from disgraced. I think by his final start, he'd probably had enough, to be honest with you. He's fresh. Kim Bailey's having winners. He looks the class out. I think he's a probably grade 2 horse in a handicap, but he's got plenty of weight. But David Baston, the one thing that slightly irritated me as someone who's looking to back him is that Captain Chaos is in the race. Now, Captain Chaos is old enough to smoke now, but he's an absolute lunatic front runner. He will lead. So Vindication will have to sit second to him and be a bit more circumspect. Well, I would have quite liked to have Vindication rolling along in front.
Yeah, a bit of a spoiler. Bit of a spoiler.
Yeah, could be a spoiler. And also, Vindication is now 3-1. I thought he was going to be 5 or 6-1. So while I think he's a bet, Vindication, I'd hope he might ease back out again.
Yeah, absolutely interesting. Do you have a view on the race at all, Vincent?
Well, a little bit. I see you talk about Vindication won it 2 years ago. You have Regal Encore in it as well. He won it last year. I personally don't see either of them being involved. Maybe Stephen's right about Vindication, but it's just his form figures put me off. That's the first thing. For me, I thought Captain Chaos, definite chance here. Course and distance winner. He runs very well. Fresh is the other thing with him. I think he's won 2 seasons before, first time out. The question mark here for me a little bit is the jockey. I don't know who this guy Durrell rides it, claims 7, means nothing to me. But I presume that's the fact. He's going to front run, claim off him. He's only got 10.6, take 7 off. You're down to 9.13, featherweight on his back. He definitely has some sort of squeak. Another horse in there, the big price that might have a little squeak for me is Glen Forsa. That was a good horse once upon a time, Glen Forsa. They thought a lot of it. You were talking about, the high class grade 1 novice races and that. You're in here off 137. Those sort of horses, they could easily pop up first time out.
Yeah, absolutely. Ultra competitive. Stephen siding with the top weight from the Kim Bailey team. And we'll to wrap up the weekend action by looking ahead to Sunday. Obviously, we don't have the decks for this at this stage, but we have the 2 o'clock at Carlisle on Sunday listed chase. Race I really look forward to every season. The Colin Parker Memorial is a great roll of honour, this race, and often whoever wins this goes on to have a pretty good season. Obviously, we don't really know who's lining up. Listening to quotes and connections, it sounds like Sporting John is going to be the JP McManus representative here. We've got Fiddler on the Roof, the Colin Tizard team, with one eye on the Labrooks Trophy at the end of November, and Kim Bailey. We've touched on him quite a bit on this show. He's represented here, possibly with Espoir de Rome. Stephen, hard to know exactly who's going to line up here, but nonetheless, there should be some good horses going to post.
This could be a brilliant race, and I hope it is. Carlisle's a really good track, and they turn it out in good nick, and they get good fields and good prize money. They desperately need rain there.
They're going to get it.
They are going to get it. I mean, let's hope they do. I mean, I'm going to steal your script here because I think I know what you're going to say here.
Go on.
And I'm going to agree with you before you get it in. Colin Tizard, they were missing all last season, weren't they? They had a terrible run. They went months without a winner. I think they had something on them, basically, a virus or whatever. I don't think they ever discovered what. But the last couple of weeks, they had a horse win in the week. Bore Barley won a handicap at Chepstow. He was a very, very promising horse early last season in juvenile hurdles and completely tailed off. And as a result, was extremely well treated and he bolted up at Chepstow. And I think Fiddler on the Roof has that profile as well. I'm not sure he's definitely going to run in this race, but he had some top-notch novice form over fences early last season, mixing it with some very good horses. He finished second behind Monkfish, of course, in the big one at the festival. But after that, he was tailed off at Aintree. But they weren't right, basically. Yeah. He's had 7 runs over fences. He's got loads of experience. The more rain that falls, the better. Tizards are now having winners. First time out, he could be a bit of a price against some sort of less exposed rivals. He's a terrific galloper with high cruising speed. Can make a mistake, but maybe we shouldn't judge him on those disappointing runs last season when the yard was quiet.
No, I think you make some very valid points there, Stephen. Yeah, the Team Tizar, there was a bit of a malaise. I mean, well documented. Joe said it himself. They cleaned out the stables. They changed their hay supply. They could not work out what was going on. Yeah, as regards to Fiddler on the Roof, a really interesting type in him. I just wonder whether this will be this will be the side to 4 Newbury in a few weeks' time. You don't really want to go and smoke a nice mark of 148, do you? The cynical side of me says things. I quite like Espoir de Rome in here for the Kim Bailey team. I think right-handed with rain on its way will really suit this horse, who would have had the better of Chantry House, I think, Aintree, of course, who is entered here. Vincent, some interesting types here, some progressive sort, second season chasers, just what you want to see in this type of contest.
Yeah, and I wouldn't put anyone off Fiddler on the Roof. I know Robbie Power always thought the world of him when he was riding those Tizard horses a couple of years ago. Thought he was a star in the making. So be interesting to see how he runs. As you say, the Tizard horse is starting to turn a corner. Other thing on Sunday is we've got some good racing in Ireland on Sunday as well. We've got a Cork Grand National, which is an interesting race. There'll be lots of horses that'll be running in all the big staying chases during the year. That's one. There's also a very good novice chase down there. And then we've got Nace on the flat on Sunday as well. Some very competitive flat action, big handicaps as well. So lots to look forward to this weekend.
Absolutely. Action is coming thick and fast. You mentioned Robbie Power there. Better wish him well on the Jump To It team. He's picked up yet another injury, I believe, and has another 6 to 8 weeks on the sideline. The old cookie's not crumbling in the favour of Mr. Robbie Power at the moment, I think it's fair to say. Anyway, let's get your tips for the weekend. Right then, Stephen, we've touched upon all sorts of manner of top action this weekend. Where are you heading? Where's your shrewdest wager, shall we say, over the next few coming days?
Yeah, really good racing, Ed. We'll learn a lot this weekend, and hopefully the rain arrives and we're going to get all the big guns out. Start at Ascot in the 210. Harry Fry, a trainer I really like. He doesn't waste runs. He's meticulous with his placing of horses. They're usually fit. And Boot Hill makes his handicap debut after just one run over hurdles at Ascot. He's held in high regard. He has been off for a long time, best part of a year, but he's 100% fit apparently, and they think he's well ahead of this opening mark. Sam Twiston Davies booked. He's quite a free-going sort. I don't think he'd want it turning into a swamp, but he has got a high cruising speed, and I think he'll be able to see these off. Staying at Ascot race we've done already, the 320, Vindication, right-handed, positive ride, sits second to Captain Chaos. I think they'll be strung out all over Berkshire after a mile here, and Vindication will be in the perfect spot. He's a relentless galloper. I think he's a graded horse in a handicap here, and I think he'll take a bit of beating. I mean, as I said earlier, I'd like more than 11 to 4. He has shortened up since we did these tips, but hopefully competitive Saturday handicap, you should get 4 to 1 on the day. And a bit of a flyer over at Wetherby. In the 340, Pam Sly has got absolutely brilliant record at 2 tracks on over jumps, Fakenham and Wetherby. And Wetherby, half a piece, is a smooth traveller with a turn of foot, goes well in soft ground. I like the fact that Jack Andrews is booked, a very, very good claiming jockey, takes off £5. Half a piece is a double figure price. I think he should reward each way support with conditions to suit.
Okay, 3 good selections there from Stephen, all 2-point wins on those 3. Vincent, we'll come to you. Where are we going for the best bets?
Okay, the first one, I'll go Friday evening in Dundalk. There's a horse called Shabajad. This is trained by Michael O'Callaghan. Horses are absolutely flying at the minute. They're winning with everything. They'd won in the Curragh on Tuesday, I think back from 40s into 14s or something. Beat a good horse of Aidan O'Brien's and a maiden. Winning all round them. This horse ran in Dundalk last week and they backed it off the boards, 9 to 1 to 7 to 2. The problem was he just came too late. Finished second, came too late. He'd a kid riding him called Jake Cohn. I don't know whether you've heard of this guy yet. He is setting the world on fire over here in the last 2-3 weeks, literally. He's a brother of Ben Cohn, who's Johnny Murtagh's stable jockey. Younger brother. I think he only just turned 16 recently. He's only literally got his license and out he comes. And he rode a double last Wednesday in Dundalk. He rode another winner there last night. And he rides this, claim 7. It's an extra furlong. This horse will win. I'd be pretty certain he'd win. The way the horses are running, the way the kid is riding, barring accidents, this should win. So I've gone for 4 points on that. Then on to Sunday. We've no runners yet, but there's a couple of horses I like the look of on Sunday. One of them runs in Nace in a handicap. It's called Clevelise. It's trained by Ken Condon. It only won a short head the last day, but I know that this horse, they got it from England, and it had a couple of runs and ran terrible, and it had a problem. It had muscle spasms or something wrong with its muscles. They got it sorted, treated, and it won in Navan the last day, admittedly only by a short head. The trip I'm not certain about, but I do know that the horse is definitely right. He's in good form, and the stable's in good form, so I'd expect a big run there. And then the other one is in this Cork National on Sunday. A horse called Mr. Fog Patches. He came over for the Air Grand National. What's that race called? Scottish Grand National in Ayr. Back in April. That's the name of it. He came over that well fancied. Pat Fahey had him right for that. Bit unlucky. He was only beaten bits and pieces. Finished third in that back in April. He had his comeback run in Listowel over a trip of 2 miles 6, too short from Ramwell. I think he's going to be prime for this on Sunday. I think that's the race they've set him up for, is to win this. Big long distance, heavy ground shouldn't bother him. I'd be expecting him to be involved.
Well, keep your eyes out for Mr. Fog Patches there. Then, and we'll throw in my 3 tips, what it's worth for the weekend. I'm sticking with Thomas Darby in Receipt of Weight, unexposed over 3 miles to really serve it up to the aging Paisley Park in the Bet365 hurdle. Shamblu, similar kind of logic here, unexposed sort in the Charlie Hall Chase, bolted up twice at that venue last season, taking on Surname, who I just cannot get right, and I just think is short enough. And then Espoir de Rome, we're yet to get the prices in for that horse because we haven't had the decks yet, but right-handed, rain on its way. I think that horse would be absolutely tuned for that race. Before we go, gentlemen, let's find out what you're up to this weekend. Vincent, are you racing? Are you watching racing, or none of the above?
Probably none of the above. No, I'll be watching the racing, all right. I won't be going racing, but I'll definitely be watching. I'm really looking forward to seeing the Down Royal action on Saturday. Be fantastic to see these top chasers back again. It's the start of the National Hunt season proper, isn't it? And we've been waiting on it all summer long. So really looking forward to it. I know people put too much emphasis on Cheltenham and people give out about the anti-post, but you only live once. Cheltenham's what it's all about. You got to get there. You got to get there with your horse, and let's hope we're going to see some stars in the making over this weekend and all through the National Hunt season.
Absolutely. Stephen, your highlight of the weekend?
Well, I think I'll be in parks in front of Cheltenham, Ascot, Wetherby, both cracking cards. Cheltenham on the brain. I'm going to go to Plumpton on Monday, I think, Ed, to get out the office chair for some period of time, have a bit of fresh air. I love Plumpton on a Monday. The only thing is, you never park in the middle, Ed. That's my tip at Plumpton. Yeah. You'll be there. The wheels. You'll be there for 5 or 6 hours. Yeah, tractor pulling you out, red faces. Late home for dinner, all of it.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, that's definitely something to look forward to. Yeah, my thanks to Stephen and Vincent for this week's show, and of course, don't forget to head over to irishracing.com for all the latest news, views, cars, opinions, and a lot more. Thank you at home for joining us this week on Jump to It, and we'll see you again next week.